It's FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal, who just put out an article on buy, sell on the fence teams. Ken, so I haven't read it. I read all your articles. Haven't read this one because it just came out, fresh, hot off the press. What do you have for us in there?
Well, it's four teams that really are still not entirely sure of their direction. It's the Rays, the Giants, the Angels, and the Rangers. The Rangers have the best playoff odds of that group, but if they lose these next two to the Angels after losing last night, who knows if they'll push as hard as they might have otherwise. I believe they will. This could be Bruce Bochy's final year. This is a very competitive front office, a team that has played much better in the last 6 weeks or so. So I would expect that they still proceed on a buy course. The Rays we saw yesterday did kind of a buy-sell maneuver with the catchers, bringing in Nick Fortis from the Marlins and trading Danny Jansen to the Brewers. The Giants, like the Rays, have not played well of late. They're 2-10 in their last 12. I think 13-22 since the Devers trade. And the Angels, you never know with the Angels because you never know what owner Artie Moreno might be thinking. So those are the four teams I focused on. And it's really interesting to me, guys. It's almost like the playoffs right now for some of these teams. And their positions, their feelings about what they want to do literally change day by day. It sounds crazy. It is a little crazy, but that's where we are.
Ken, there's no way that the Rangers don't go in and buy somebody. Now, the Angels, like you said, is a wild card. We don't know because I just don't think the Angels, they're 4.5 out. They got like 5 teams in front of them to get to the third wild card. I don't see that one happening. But the Rangers are right there for a wild card. They're half game out. They're going to push in. And I bet you the Rangers think that they could probably catch the Astros, much like the Mariners think the same thing. Now, the other two teams, the Rays always try to buy and sell and maneuver like whatever. And the Giants, we just don't know because it's Buster Posey's first trade deadline. So, but the one thing I do know, Chris Young and Bruce Bochy, they're going to make a run at.
No, AJ, I agree with you. And there are some extenuating factors there. The luxury tax threshold might be one, so that might restrain them some. The other thing is they played so poorly in the first 2 months, it kind of haunts them a little bit. And they're worried that they're going to regress again. Now, I totally agree with you. This is, as I said, a very competitive group. And yes, all front offices are competitive, but we're talking about Bruce Bochy and we're talking about Chris Young. Those are two of the more competitive people you'll ever meet. So, yes, I expect them to buy. But again, the point of including them was they're kind of in a position still where the next 2 days could influence them if it goes really badly. I don't expect it will. I don't expect them to change. They've got the best ERA in the major leagues. My goodness, you can win with that. But they're still not entirely there.
Ken, I want to get to potentially the best position player available on the market, and it's not Eugenio Suárez. You put out an article last night about Steven Kwan of the Guardians. Do you think he'll get dealt, and where could he end up?
Scott, I'm not sure he'll get dealt. I can't predict that. And obviously the Guardians are a team that generally set their prices at a high level and do not waver from them. And that frustrates other clubs at times, but that's their right to do that. Their every right to do that. And the way they see it, because they're operating in such difficult circumstances with low revenues, they have to be very disciplined about what they do. Now, Steven Kwan is a guy that has 2 more years of control after this. They don't have to trade him. They probably shouldn't trade him from a competitive standpoint. But with what has happened, losing Luis Ortiz and now Emmanuel Clase to non-disciplinary paid leave because of the gambling investigation, let's face it, their chances for 2025 are pretty much shot. So they may be at least more open to the conversation than they would be with Kwan. And yes, they will entertain offers, as all teams entertain offers for pretty much all of their players. As far as we know, there have been no progress or has been no progress in any extension talks with Kwan. So this is something they will consider. I would expect the Padres would be in there deep on Kwan, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, pretty much every team that would want to bat would be in on him. The question is, will the Guardians move when they have all these other opportunities to trade him? In the offseason, you could even expand the list of teams because it wouldn't necessarily include only contenders. They don't have to do this now, but maybe some team will push them to do it now.
Ken, stay on the Guardians here for a second. How big of a deal was the Emmanuel Clase news yesterday? and how much Jim Bowden came on to change their whole trade deadline. Is that true that basically they were going to move him, and now since he's off the table and he's on the restricted list, they changed their complete deadline plans?
Well, certainly they were talking about moving him, and it was something that, again, they were going to consider, and they would have to have their price met. Whether it was a certainty that they were going to move him, I don't know that anyone can say that. But what it did do, in my opinion, is really end any chance of them buying. Because at this point, you're down two significant pitchers. They were kind of right in that never land zone where they weren't quite sure what to do. Not playing particularly poorly, not playing particularly well. But now, come on. They know that they're not going to be a playoff team. They know that this season is pretty much shot. So that does change their direction, no question, because there was still some chance that they were going to buy. And it seems now that that chance has been diminished almost to zero.
Trade deadline is compelling theater. Even more compelling is the Brewers and the Cubs are playing each other going into this trade deadline. How much are they going to be battling against each other? It's like David versus Goliath, large market, small market. We don't have any money. We don't spend any money. How is this battle going to play out? Or strategically with the organizations, how do you think they'll play it out against each other?
Eric, I don't think that they're looking at the same kinds of players. That's one thing. So, yes, the Cubs, we know, are really hungry to put a finishing cap on what they have on their roster. They want to top this team off. They want to get a starting pitcher, bullpen help, anything they can. Third base has also been an area where they've looked at. Matt Shaw has played a little bit better lately. I don't know that you make your decision on that. So we know the Cubs are hungry to act. The Brewers are the Brewers. And I've written about this at length, and they do things in their own way. Yes, they acquired Danny Jansen yesterday. They also have shown interest in Ryan O'Hearn and other hitters. Do I expect them to necessarily do something big? I actually would be surprised if they did something big. It's just not their style. But this is a team that we've seen. We saw it again last night. They compete no matter who they have, no matter how many pieces you take away. And they've got an extremely talented pitching staff right now that in some respects might be reshaped because you could trade a starting pitcher, Nestor Cortez, Jose Quintana, to get something else you need. There are all kinds of things that they can do. They would like to reinforce their bullpen as well because as good as it's been, kind of getting to the point now where you might be running on fumes.
Kratz, at some point, we're going to laugh about how healthcare was so reactive and not proactive. And we're starting to change that with Superpower. They believe every human has 100+ year potential, and they're here to help you get there. I'm a big believer in this. I just started the journey, so I'm excited about it. And what do you think?
As a player, you're always looking ways to improve yourself, improve your health. And this is an easy way. Superpower's made it way easier than when I was playing. You had to go get all these lab panels, and it was a long, drawn-out, expensive process. But now with Superpower, so this is awesome for me. I'm excited about it.
They'll send a licensed professional to your home, or you can visit a nearby lab. For a limited time, the FT fam can get $50 off an annual Superpower membership by using code FOUL at checkout. Just head to superpower.com and use code FOUL to get our exclusive discount, your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and please support FT and tell them we sent you.
The Padres. Why would they sell? People were like, they're going to trade Cease, and they're going to. You said they might trade Suarez. Why? They're in the wild card. They have a 2-game lead in a wild card. Why would they sell? Why wouldn't they try? Listen, Preller's the master of trading guys and getting guys and making moves here and there. Why would they sell? I don't understand why people are saying, oh, the Padres are going to sell all these guys. Why?
AJ, they would only sell if it enabled them to get other pieces that would help them maybe even better compete this season. That's the whole point. They're not pure sellers, and they shouldn't be, as you just mentioned. They're a really good team. They're in good wild card position, as you mentioned, and there's no reason for them to sell. But when you have a farm system that is not as deep as it once was, at least in the eyes of many in the industry, when you have seeming payroll restrictions of some kind, we don't know exactly what they are. At that point, you have to be creative. And that is why you think about or talk about moving a Dylan Cease if it can bring you something else of great value to your team. We know what they need. They need a left fielder. They'd like to improve their catching as well. And if you trade Cease, you've got to backfill with another starting pitcher. So to describe them as pure sellers would be a misconception. That's not right. What they are is a team that is looking at all possibilities, trying to improve themselves for 26. I sound like a GM with the GM speak now, but that's what they're doing.
You should be a GM, Ken. You have the well,
No,
except you don't wear quarter zips. You wear bow ties, so
that's right.
Oh, I guess Mozeliak did that for a while too.
That's true.
But here's my question: we talked about Danny Jansen getting traded to the Brewers. Why wouldn't the Padres be in on a Danny Jansen? That seems like the perfect fit for the Padres. And the Brewers gave up an A-ball, 21-year-old kid in A-ball. He's having a good year, but you don't think the Padres could have thrown in one of them for Danny Jansen type?
I don't know the answer to that, and the Padres have a zillion balls in the air, and I just can't tell you exactly. But you're right. Danny Jansen would have been a good fit. What they're looking for out of that position is more offense, and Danny Jansen would give you more offense than Elias Diaz, who did have the walk-off last night, and Martin Maldonado.
All right, back to the Rays. We hit on the Rays a little bit, but you had mentioned about possibly if the next few games don't go the Rays' way, Brandon Lau and a Yandy Diaz. Is their market more of like a, well, there's not a lot position player-wise because you said Steven Kwan might be interesting, but it may not happen. Is that just the Rays testing the market, or is that at the point in their contracts or at the point in their careers, it's to move on from those guys?
Eric, it's not something they want to do. What they would want to do is win the next couple of games and keep going forward and be the team that they were for about 6 weeks there when they were maybe the best team in baseball. They have not been that since. They're kind of like the Giants in that way, that they were in a good spot at one point and then suddenly they've entered this funk and they haven't really gotten out of it yet. So any idea of trading those guys would only stem from a reality that playoffs aren't happening and that maybe that would be best, given the state of the market, if they are pushed hard enough, to move those guys for the returns that they might get. Kind of depends on the next couple of games in New York. And actually, their game Thursday is an early start, 1 o'clock start with the 6 o'clock deadline. So that game theoretically could figure into this as well. I don't know what they're going to do. We saw yesterday, again, the buy-sell maneuver. That is generally what they like to do, but they can go in any direction based on kind of where they are and where they feel they are. One thing about the Rays that's interesting, their run differential, and this isn't everything, but it's something, is even better than the team leading the AL East, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. The Rays are at plus 56. The Jays are at plus 35. So the Rays see themselves as a team that still can be rather competitive, but just has kind of gone bad at the wrong time.
Ken, I want to ask you quick about the Pirates. Holding out for the right prospect package, especially for a guy you have under multiple years of team control, makes total sense. But is there any truth to them still deciding if they want to trade Mitch Keller in general? If so, why? Because it's not like they've been trying to figure out if they're going to be competitive this year. This is something they should have decided for the last couple months.
They have been torn about it. And the reason they've been torn about it, and even Bednar to an extent, though I do believe he'll be traded, is these guys are kind of central to who they are right now. And you might say, well, Ken, they stink right now. Very true. But both are perceived as leaders. Both are outstanding performers. And Keller, in the eyes of some, is only getting better. So you might look at this and say, wait, we want them to be part of our future and not guys who we're trading off for impact offensive players if they're even available. The problem with keeping them is you're not going to spend money. We know they're not going to spend money because they're the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if you have any chance to get impact offensive talent back in return for these guys, Keller in particular, with the years of control he has, in my mind, you have to do it. But they know the value of those players to their own organization. You can envision a world, if you were spending money perhaps, where you were building around those guys. I just don't see that world existing for the Pirates. It seems to me that they have to move Keller and Bednar. And I understand where they are, and I understand the difficulty of Ben Cherington's position. He's under fire. He has his job in question for next year. But in this situation, GMs generally do what is best for the organization. What is best for the organization right now is to trade those guys, both of them, Bednar and Keller, and get as much as you can offensively back.
Okay, Ken, last one. It's quick. It's a one-team answer. Where does Eugenio Suárez go?
Ooh. Well, let's assume he's healthy because he did get hit in the hand last night. My guess would be Mariners.
Wow.
Okay. Reunion.
Okay. You think they'll pay the highest price for him?
Now,
So good.
Guys, that's a guess. And again, when we look at all these trades that go down, when we pick up our heads on July 31st, even August 1st, and look at everything, think about how many of those deals we thought were coming and how many we had no idea about were coming. It's going to be very much tilted toward we had no idea.